The gaze that haunts you. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast and endless chasm. There is no sound, only the heavy weight of stillness pressing against your thoughts. You lean forward, not out of recklessness, but from the irresistible pull of something deep and unknown. You search for meaning in the shadows, for truth in the darkness. But as you stare into the void, something ancient and powerful begins to stir. It stares back. And in that moment, you are no longer just an observer, you become part of the abyss itself. This is not a fantasy. It is a reality that many of us have faced silently in moments of crisis. When the pain becomes too much, when the meaning dissolves, when fear takes root in the core of our being, we begin to slip. The more we try to understand the darkness within ourselves and the world around us, the more it threatens to consume us. Nietzsche understood this deeply. His warning when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you, is not just poetic. It is psychological truth. The abyss is not a place. It is a state of being. It is what happens when we try to understand suffering, chaos, and despair without anchoring ourselves in meaning. We look into the void hoping for answers, but we rarely notice that the void is looking back, waiting to shape us in its image. To explore Nietzsche's haunting idea, we must go further. What does it truly mean to gaze into the abyss? What dangers lie beyond the surface? And more importantly, how can we walk this path without losing ourselves? This journey is not for the faint of heart, but for those who dare to understand, to confront the deepest parts of their psyche. There lies a revelation more powerful than any comfort illusion could ever provide. The abyss is not just a threat. It is also a key. It opens the door to understanding ourselves in ways that comfort never could. But that door swings both ways, and what lies on the other side may change you forever. 2. The enemy within. The abyss is seductive, not because it lies to us, but because it tells us the truth, just not all at once. It begins with a whisper, a sense that something is missing, something is broken. And then, slowly, it offers clarity. It shows us that the world is not as orderly as we once believed, that suffering is not always fair, that morality may be nothing more than a social agreement. And in this brutal honesty, there is a strange relief. We no longer have to pretend. But with this clarity comes a risk, the risk of losing ourselves in the very truths we sought. Nietzsche saw the abyss not just as a philosophical concept, but as an ever-present psychological reality. He warned us that those who fight monsters must take care not to become one in the process. When we look into darkness too long without awareness, without grounding, we begin to reflect it. And then, slowly, we become it. This is the true danger, the transformation that happens silently, without permission. You set out to resist injustice, but your anger hardens into hate. You seek to confront grief, but it consumes your identity. You battle the chaos of the world, but lose the ability to feel joy. In fighting the enemy, you become indistinguishable from it. This isn't a dramatic moment of collapse. It's subtle. It's the shift in tone when bitterness replaces curiosity. It's the weight of cynicism that starts to color every thought. And it's the cold, hollow feeling that remains when you realize you've lost your capacity for hope. The abyss lives within us. It is not just in the world. It is in our minds, our patterns, our wounded memories. And it grows stronger the more unconsciously we engage with it. The paradox is that in order to grow, we must face the darkness. But if we do so blindly, it devours us. Nietzsche never said to avoid struggle. He urged us to remain conscious while entering it. The monsters we fight may live outside of us, but they always leave a mark inside. The key is not to deny the abyss. The key is to know who you are as you walk toward it. Because if you forget, it will remember you in its own image. 3. The loss of meaning. To stare into the abyss is to strip away the comforting illusions we once clung to. It begins with questions quiet at first, then relentless. What if morality is just a construct? What if meaning is subjective? What if the universe is indifferent to our existence? These questions do not arrive as academic curiosities. They arrive in the stillness of grief, in the aftermath of loss, in the disillusionment that follows betrayal or failure. One day, the framework that once held your identity begins to crack. The beliefs you inherited no longer hold weight. The answers you were given no longer satisfy. And beneath it all lies a terrifying silence. This is the first danger of the abyss, the collapse of meaning. Nietzsche understood that once we begin to question the foundations of our world, we enter dangerous terrain. We remove the scaffolding that once supported us, and without a replacement, we risk falling. This is where many give up. They retreat, clinging to dogma, desperate to restore certainty. Or they surrender, allowing the void to consume them. But Nietzsche did not retreat. He saw this collapse as necessary. Because before you can build something real, you must first tear down the false. He called this process the revaluation of values, a radical re-examination of everything you've been taught to believe. It is painful. It is disorienting. But it is also the only path to authenticity. If nothing has inherent meaning, then meaning must be created. And that responsibility does not lie with society, religion, or tradition. It lies with you. But most people never make it this far. They stop halfway, trapped between what once was and what has yet to be. They see the abyss and turn away. Or worse, they fall into nihilism, the belief that nothing matters, that all effort is futile. Nietzsche feared this more than anything. He did not promote nihilism. He diagnosed it. He saw it as a sickness, a collapse of the human spirit. Because when we lose meaning, we lose the will to act, to grow, to create. And in that emptiness, we become passive, cynical, and eventually self-destructive. But Nietzsche believed this darkness was not the end. It was a necessary descent, because only through that descent can something new begin to rise. 4. Transforming the void. The abyss, when seen only as destruction, appears hopeless. But Nietzsche's philosophy invites us to look deeper, not to see it as an ending, but as a beginning. If meaning can collapse, then meaning can also be built. If the old values fail, new ones can emerge. But they must be yours. Not inherited, not borrowed, but forged through conscious struggle. This is the radical freedom Nietzsche offered, not the freedom from pain, but the freedom to transform it. To take what was meant to break you and use it as fuel. To enter the abyss, not as a passive victim, but as an active force. This is where his idea of the Bermensch, the overman, enters. The overman is not a superhero. He is not above suffering. In fact, he suffers deeply, but he does not allow suffering to define him. He does not seek approval or comfort. He seeks creation. He turns inward and finds the strength to craft meaning from chaos, to write his own values in a world that offers none. He is not shaped by the abyss. He shapes it. This is the transformation Nietzsche spoke of, not a denial of struggle, but a full embrace of it, a transmutation of darkness into light. Think of those who have walked through fire and emerged not burned, but refined. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, found in the worst of human suffering the profound realization that meaning is not given, it is chosen. His insight that those who have a strong why can endure almost any how echoes Nietzsche's belief in the power of purpose. Carl Jung, deeply influenced by Nietzsche, went even further. He believed each person must confront their shadow, the hidden, darker self that lives beneath the mask. And only by facing this internal abyss could one become whole. The void, then, is not an enemy. It is a teacher, a mirror, a crucible. It shows you who you are without illusion. And if you are willing to look and not look away, you gain something priceless: awareness. The power to act from a place of clarity rather than fear. But this awareness does not come cheaply. It demands everything. Your comfort, your certainty, your ego. And yet, what it offers in return is freedom, the kind of freedom that no system, no belief, no external validation can give you. The kind that can only be earned by walking through your own darkness and emerging, not untouched, but transformed. 5. the love of fate. To walk through the abyss and not be broken by it is already a rare feat. But Nietzsche asks us to go further, not only to survive suffering, but to love it. This idea, distilled in the Latin phrase amor fati, means the love of fate. Not mere acceptance, not reluctant endurance, but an active embrace of everything life brings: joy and sorrow, triumph and tragedy, creation and collapse. It is one of the most provocative and liberating ideas in Nietzsche's work. What does it mean to love fate? It means looking at your pain, not as a mistake, but as a necessary part of who you are becoming. It means seeing every loss, every failure, every betrayal as part of your unique path, one that no one else could walk for you. It means removing the words, "why me," from your vocabulary and replacing them with "what now?" This mindset changes everything. Most people view suffering as an interruption, something to avoid or minimize. But if you practice amor fati, suffering becomes sacred. It becomes the raw material for wisdom, for resilience, for transformation. You stop trying to escape the fire and begin learning how to dance inside it. This does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean accepting injustice or cruelty. It means recognizing that resistance to reality only deepens your pain. Amor fati is not a resignation to fate, it is a creative engagement with it. You become an artist, painting your life with every color, even the darkest ones. And when you do, you realize something profound. Nothing is wasted. Every heartbreak contains a seed. Every setback holds a lesson. Every fear hides a doorway. With amor fati, you stop waiting for the storm to pass. You learn to find meaning within the storm. Imagine applying this to your own life. The job you lost, the person who left, the failure that humiliated you. What if those weren't detours, but essential chapters? What if they are shaping you into someone you cannot yet see? The practice of loving fate is not easy. It goes against everything comfort teaches us. But comfort never made anyone great. The abyss remains. But now, you are no longer its prisoner. You are its student. And one day, you may even become its master. 6. The eternal return. What if every choice you made, every word you spoke, every pain you endured, had to be lived again and again for eternity? Not just once more, but endlessly, in an infinite loop of time. Nietzsche's thought experiment, known as the eternal return, is not meant to be taken as a scientific theory. It is a psychological mirror, a provocation, a challenge. Imagine for a moment that your life exactly as it is, with every joy and every sorrow, would repeat forever. Would you rejoice or recoil? Most people hesitate. Some shrink. Because we live so much of life on autopilot, hoping to get through the hard parts, waiting for better days. We treat time as something to escape, not something to honor. But the eternal return forces a confrontation. Are you living a life you would willingly repeat? Are you creating days that deserve eternity? If not, then what must change? Nietzsche believed that to truly embrace life, you must be willing to affirm all of it, not just the pleasures, but the suffering too. Not just the victories, but the failures. Because only through that affirmation can we reach authenticity. This idea is not meant to torment. It is meant to awaken. It asks you to stop postponing your presence, to stop living for some future moment of happiness, to start crafting a life that holds meaning in every step. Not because you'll get to do it again, but because you must. The eternal return is the highest standard for how to live. It doesn't ask what you want. It asks what you value enough to choose forever. Would you still speak with kindness if those words echoed for eternity? Would you still betray your truth if you knew the consequences would repeat? Would you still numb your pain if you had to feel it again and again without growth? The abyss, in this frame, becomes something else entirely. It is not only a place of darkness. It is a test, a filter, a passage that asks, are you living in a way that matters? Are you living in a way that honors the burden and the beauty of existence? The eternal return is not a curse. It is an invitation to live deliberately, to choose fiercely, and to say yes to your life, not just once, but forever. 7. Becoming the creator. Once the abyss has stripped you bare of illusions, of borrowed beliefs, of comforting lies, you are left with a terrifying but beautiful truth. Nothing is guaranteed. Meaning does not arrive from outside. There is no savior, no doctrine, no final answer. And in that silence, many people break. But Nietzsche believed that in this very moment of existential nakedness lies our greatest potential. For when all inherited meanings fall away, something new becomes possible. You become the creator, not just of art or ideas, but of values, of purpose, of self. This is the essence of the Bermensch, the overman, not a being of power over others, but one who rises above convention, above stagnation, above despair. He does not inherit meaning. He forges it. He does not conform. He becomes. But creation is not comfortable. It demands presence. It demands responsibility. Because when you accept that you are the one who must define your own life, you can no longer blame the world for your emptiness. You can no longer hide behind tradition or ideology. You must look inward and ask, what do I stand for? What will I build from this brokenness? And most terrifying of all, what if no one ever validates it but me? This is where most turn back. They want a blueprint, a map, a guarantee. But true creation begins where the map ends. It begins in the silence, in the chaos, in the place where the abyss offers no answers, only a mirror. And in that mirror, you do not see what you were told to be. You see what you truly are and what you might become. Nietzsche's challenge is radical. Stop waiting. Stop obeying. Stop borrowing. Begin creating. Not recklessly, but intentionally. Not for applause, but for truth. Ask yourself, what values would I live by if I had to invent them today? What kind of strength would I need if I could no longer rely on anything outside myself? Who would I be if no one ever told me who I should become? In the abyss, there is no external authority. Only the invitation to build. You are no longer just a seeker. You are the source. And from that source, your life can become a work of art, not perfect, but real. Not complete, but alive. 8. The shadow and the self. To become the creator of your life is not simply an act of will. It is a confrontation with all that you are and all that you have hidden. Carl Jung, deeply influenced by Nietzsche, called this the integration of the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is not your enemy. It is the part of you that has been exiled, your repressed desires, your forbidden emotions, your denied truths. And yet, this very darkness holds the key to your wholeness. You cannot create something meaningful if you're fragmented. You cannot build a new life if you are divided within. To look into the abyss is to meet your shadow face to face. And that meeting is not a battle. It is a reckoning. The rage you suppress, the fear you hide, the envy you refuse to name, all of it waits in the dark. Not to destroy you, but to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be understood. Because what you refuse to face will rule you. But what you integrate becomes your strength. The moment you stop running from your inner darkness is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to be whole. Jung warned that those who do not face their shadow become controlled by it. Their actions are driven by unconscious impulses. Their choices are haunted by unresolved wounds. But when you bring the shadow into consciousness, you reclaim authorship. You stop reacting. You begin responding. This is not about becoming pure. It is about becoming complete. The abyss does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. And when you can hold your shadow without judgment, when you can say, yes, this too is part of me, you unlock a deeper wisdom. You realize that your darkness is not an obstacle to your light. It is the soil in which that light must grow. Your fear teaches you courage. Your sorrow deepens your empathy. Your anger reveals your boundaries. The shadow, once integrated, becomes your ally. Not to erase your flaws, but to reveal your fullness. In the stillness of the abyss, you meet not your enemy, but your reflection. And in that reflection, you begin to see not who you should be, but who you already are, waiting to be accepted. 9. The abyss of the world. The abyss is not confined to the chambers of your inner life. It exists all around you in the world, in your society, in your culture. The darkness within mirrors the darkness without. And the world, much like the individual, is in crisis. We see it in the political divisions that tear communities apart. We see it in the growing apathy toward truth, the decay of trust, the rise of distraction over depth. We feel it in the quiet emptiness that grows louder each time a screen replaces a soul. This collective abyss is not new. Nietzsche saw it coming more than a century ago. When he said God is dead, he wasn't celebrating the loss of religion. He was mourning the collapse of shared meaning. He knew that when the old foundations crumbled, the world would descend into confusion, into nihilism, into chaos. And yet, he did not preach despair. He preached creation, because in every collapse lies opportunity. In every breakdown, the seed of a breakthrough. The abyss of the world is terrifying because it forces us to ask, who are we without the stories we used to believe? Who are we when the institutions fail, when tradition offers no guidance, when technology outpaces wisdom? But that same abyss offers a rare and powerful gift, the chance to begin again. Just as the individual can forge new meaning from personal suffering, so too can humanity rebuild from collective darkness. But only if we stop running. Only if we stop numbing. Only if we have the courage to look not with judgment, but with imagination. What values could we create that honor both the individual and the whole? What kind of society could we build if we began from awareness, from integration, from humility? The world does not need more avoidance. It needs more visionaries, those who are willing to look into the abyss and not fall, but build. And that building starts with you. Because the way you respond to your own suffering is the blueprint for how you engage with the suffering of the world. If you transform your pain, you become a beacon. If you integrate your shadow, you become a guide. And slowly, person by person, we begin to turn the abyss not into paradise, but into possibility. 10. Rise from the abyss. The abyss is not your enemy. It is your turning point. It is the place where illusions die and truth is born. It is the moment when the old self dissolves and something new begins to stir, fragile, uncertain, but alive. Nietzsche never told us to avoid this place. He told us to step into it with open eyes, because what you fear most may be the very thing that sets you free. But freedom is not given. It is chosen, again and again. In the small moments, in the private battles, in the silent choices that no one will ever see. To rise from the abyss is not to erase your pain, but to transform it. It is to stand in the ruins of what you once believed and begin to build, not as the person you were, but as the person you were always meant to become. And this becoming is not a destination. It is a practice, a process, a path. The abyss will still whisper. The darkness will still return. But now you know it. Now you recognize its face. And that recognition is power. The power to respond, not react. To create, not conform. To live, not just exist. So ask yourself, as this journey comes to a close, what have you been avoiding? What part of you has been waiting to be seen? What meaning will you create now that you understand the abyss is not the end, but the beginning? You do not need to be fearless. You only need to be willing. Willing to look, to listen, to grow. Because through that willingness, you become more than a survivor. You become a force, a presence, a light that has passed through the dark and emerged not untouched, but unafraid. If this journey has stirred something in you, if it made you reflect, pause, or feel, then carry it with you. Let it guide your next step. And if you found meaning here, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs it. Comment with the part that spoke to you most. And if you want to go deeper into yourself, into truth, into the soul of human experience, subscribe, and walk with us again. The abyss is not where the story ends. It's where the real one begins.